They called him the most dangerous man ever to wear England's crown, a prince who was never meant to be king, a ruler who broke with Rome, executed his wives, and changed history forever. This is the story of Henry VIII. Henry was born in 1491, the second son of Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. He wasn't expected to inherit the throne. That was his elder brother, Arthur. Arthur was groomed to rule while young Henry lived in his shadow, educated, charming, athletic, but destined for the church. Then fate intervened. In 1502, Arthur died suddenly, leaving behind his young bride, Catherine of Aragon. Everything changed. Henry was now the heir to England's throne. At just 17, he became king. Handsome, tall, golden-haired, Henry dazzled his court. He loved music, dancing, jousting, and hunting, the very image of a Renaissance prince. And to secure his throne, he married his brother's widow, Catherine. At first, Henry was adored. He was called the Young Apollo, a king who would unite strength with learning. Even the Pope gave him a title, Defender of the Faith. But there was one shadow he could never escape, the need for a son. Catherine gave him a daughter, Mary, but no surviving sons. Year after year, Catherine grew older, while Henry grew restless. And then came the woman who would change everything, Anne Boleyn. Anne was clever, ambitious, and refused to be just another mistress. She wanted a crown. Henry was obsessed, but the Pope refused to grant an annulment. So Henry did the unthinkable. He broke with Rome. He declared himself head of the Church of England. It was the greatest act of defiance in English history. Anne became his queen. In 1533, she gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth. Henry was disappointed, but he believed a son would come. Instead, his passion soured. By 1536, Anne was accused of adultery and treason. Whether guilty or not, it didn't matter. She was beheaded at the Tower. The world had seen Henry would destroy anyone, even a queen. They stood in his way. Just days later, he married again, Jane Seymour. At last, Jane gave him what he wanted most, a son, Edward. But joy turned to grief. Jane died after childbirth. Henry wept for her more than any other wife. Still, he pressed on. By now, the handsome prince was gone. Henry had grown heavier, more ruthless, his leg crippled from a jousting accident. But his thirst for power and control only deepened. Next came Anne of Cleves, married for alliance, divorced in months. Then Catherine Howard, young, reckless, accused of betrayal and executed. Finally, Catherine Parr, a survivor who soothed the aging king and outlived him. By the end, Henry VIII was unrecognizable. Once an athletic golden boy, now an obese tyrant who ruled in paranoia and fear. Friends, ministers, nobles, none were safe. He had sent many to the block, from Thomas More to Thomas Cromwell, yet his shadow stretched far beyond blood. By defying the Pope, Henry had created a new church, a new identity for England. The English Reformation was born. But perhaps his greatest legacy was not in faith or politics, but in his children. Edward VI, his long-awaited son, died young. Mary I, his eldest daughter, tried to restore Catholicism and became Bloody Mary. And Elizabeth I, the daughter of Anne Boleyn, ruled as the Virgin Queen, the most iconic monarch of all. Through them, Henry's storm lived on. He had sought glory, love, and a son. He left behind rebellion, division, and a dynasty that would shape the world. Henry VIII was no ordinary king. He was a force of nature, a man who would stop at nothing, for power, for love, for immortality.